When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like aloe or skins, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. With Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales happening. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skins uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a really special treat for you today. This is an interview that I've been looking forward to for quite some time, and I think you are going to be so pleased that you take this time to join us today. Before we get to that interview, I want to tell you that June 1st is World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. In honor of that, for the entire month of June, I am offering all individual sessions with me at a discounted rate of $99 per hour. We can meet once or we can meet as many times as you want. If you would like to take advantage of this offer, shoot me an email at Renee, RENEE, at CNG, that stands for Covert Narcissism Group, CNGlifecoaching.com. I also want to take a quick moment and remind you that my next round of group sessions is beginning on May 31st. I only have a few spots left in these groups. You can choose between Tuesday mornings or Saturday mornings. Each group runs for 6 weeks. We meet for 2 hours on Zoom each week. You receive handouts and worksheets each week. The groups consist of 10 group members who, just like you, are struggling through a relationship with a covert narcissist. It is incredibly empowering to work in a group setting where you receive so much validation for the pain, confusion, and doubt that you are experiencing. If you want one of these few spots remaining, please do not hesitate to contact me because these groups will fill up. You can contact me at the email I've already mentioned, Renee at CNGlifecoaching.com or Renee at covertnarcissism.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a special treat for you. It is my honor to introduce to you Debbie Mirza. She's a best-selling author of kind of the Bible of covert narcissism is what this book has become. And it's the Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, one of the first books I read that really opened my eyes to everything that was going on in my world and really gave me so much clarity on what was happening. So she is a life coach trained by Martha Beck, and has worked with victims of covert narcissistic abuse in her past, and is just such a joy to have today and such a delight to have you with us, Debbie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, something you would want my audience to know about you.
So much to say about oneself. I am a very kind, I am the standard target for a covert narcissist.
We're going to talk about that actually today.
Yeah. Since that's the topic, I can come from that place. Yeah, I'm very kind. I'm very big-hearted. I am all about peace and love and harmony and connection. And I am a big seeker of healing and peace and living a life I love, and a seeker of myself and who I am. And so much to say.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear all of that. And it does not surprise me at all. So what inspired you to write books about covert narcissism?
Yeah, something I never saw on my life plan, like all of us. I was in a 24-year relationship, and toward the end, like we all experience, unbeknownst to me, was the beginning of the discard, and it was a really turbulent, confusing, back and forth, intermittent reinforcement, like all of it time. Mm-hmm. And it brought me to the place where I moved to end the relationship, which I never thought I would do ever. And it was my divorce attorney that said, is this a narcissist you were dealing with, basically? And I was like really confused by that. I was like, no, he's the nicest guy, and you would love him. Everyone loves him. And she said, yeah, that's how they are. And I was triply confused. And I said, why do you ask? She said, I'm hearing a lot of classic signs. And I was so confused by that. She said, but she looked at me with her like fierce blue eyes, piercing blue. And she said, I suggest as soon as you get home, you get a hold of as much information on this topic that you can, because you need to know what you're dealing with. And so I did that. And like so many of us, I read about narcissism, and some of it rang true, but it wasn't like the full picture of what I had experienced. So through then many years of researching, on books and YouTube and online, and then going to therapists and going to coaches and trying to piece together what I had been through and what I was going through, I heard someone say the words I needed to hear, which was, it sounds like you were with a covert passive aggressive narcissist, and they're the most difficult to recognize. So that's the piece I needed to then get the full picture. And even with that, at the time, there wasn't a lot of information out. And even the information I would find, some of it felt true and some of it didn't. So yeah, it was, and as you know, after the discard, the abuse doesn't end. So it continued for years later. And it was I don't know when, because the book came out at the end of 2017. So yeah, a few years after the divorce, I received a really abusive email, and I responded back. And by that time I had gotten stronger, and I was putting up boundaries. And I said, if I get any more of these abusive emails, I'm going to have to block you. And so then I received a really traumatic fire hose of abuse, basically. And it sent me into kind of a catatonic state where I was just numb for a few days. And it was during that time where I literally just sat and stared out my window. And I don't think I spoke for 3 days. And so the third day, there's been so many tears, so much sadness, so much grief. And it started to turn to anger, like a righteous anger. And I started to think of all the other people. I knew I wasn't alone in this, and all the other people that were going through this at the same time I was, and didn't have the information. And by that time, I had learned so much. Like so many of us, I felt like I had a PhD in covert narcissism.
Yes, you get a degree in that when you thought you had a marriage license.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, and I mentioned, I'm thinking about writing this. And like I had a vision and everything. It was very kind of magical how it came together. And he said, you've been to university, he was British, for 24 years. I don't think you want to waste that education.
Wow.
And I really needed to hear that. So I took it very seriously, and I cleared out my whole year of plans. And that was the only thing I was going to focus on besides, taking care of my kids. So that was, I ended up interviewing over 100 people because I didn't want this to be about me and just my story. I wanted to help people who had had all types of relationships with a covert narcissist. And I wanted it to be really accurate, so I dove in even deeper and I interviewed more therapists and just gained as much information as I could. I went to this local support group and asked so many people if I could interview them. And I asked a million questions in the group,
Wow.
And so, over the course of the year, that's how I wrote that book.
Well, it really, truly paid off. And what a story. But it truly paid off in how in-depth and how accurate your book is. So all of that work you put into it, I know I speak for my audience as well to say thank you for the work that you put in, because it truly has been life-changing for so many people.
Thank you so much. That still brings me to tears. At the time, I did not realize. It's been validating to me to see the response and the reviews for the book, because even all of us go through our own doubts because It's just so crazy making. And so it's like by writing this book, I discovered there is a massively huge tribe out there across the world.
Yes.
There are people who have gone through the same thing and I read the reviews. Like someone was like, didn't realize how much authors read reviews, but I no longer read the bad ones. But
smart.
But the positive ones, I still cry over. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And my Facebook group kind of started the same way in regards to, I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there had to be other people out there that were dealing with this. I had no idea how massive the reach of covert narcissism really, truly is. It is like a tribe and a huge amount of people that are suffering from this. So covert narcissism, it's so hard to get a hold of. It's like, I tell my members all the time, it's like trying to catch a ghost. It's here one minute, it's gone the next, because it's so hard to really grasp. And we cannot hear it enough times how different people describe it so that we can really register with that. So in your words, what is a covert narcissist?
So covert narcissist, there's, in the description of narcissistic personality disorder, they give different traits, and you have to have at least 5 for a therapist to establish if you're a narcissist or have narcissistic personality disorder. A covert narcissist has the exact same traits. They're also someone with narcissistic personality disorder, but the way those are revealed, the way those traits manifest, are in a very subtle, covert, insidious way. So much so that, and there's a spectrum of a covert narcissist. There's very covert to kind of both covert and overt. You can have, or somewhere in the middle. And the very, very covert ones, you can be with them for decades and not realize. And these people are very beloved. They have, they're very liked, they're respected in their community. Like if, it could be a mom is the head of the PTA. It could be, wealthy humanitarian. It could be a celebrity that my radar always goes up when I hear people talk about politicians or celebrities who are like, oh, whenever I meet them, they look me in my eyes and I feel like I'm the only person in there. It's like, red flag.
Red flag. Right. Right.
We'll run away. Yeah. I don't trust that. And unless you're with that person, you can feel it's genuine. But a lot of times that's a red flag.
Sure.
So they're really easy to miss. And that's what makes it so crazy making, because you're with someone for so long, you're raised by them, or you're with them in a marriage or partnership or a business or whatever, and nothing appears to be wrong, and nothing even appears, this is the extreme covert, nothing even appears to be mean about their behavior, because you've gotten so used to demeaning and devaluing and intermittent reinforcement and gaslighting, you don't see it. But instead, over the years, your life force slowly dwindles. The light inside you slowly dims because you are now, I mean, it's really like brainwashing. It's like being in a cult where you have adopted beliefs about yourself that you weren't aware how you were being slowly brainwashed month after month, year after year, that your self-image plummets. You don't know who you are. You can't see clearly. You don't have energy. You have all these health issues you can't figure out. You're tired all the time. You have low level depression, so yeah. So that's, I mean, a lot of the effects. So it's essentially the exact same as a narcissist, but an overt narcissist is more flashy and annoying, and people roll their eyes at them.
The world sees
and they're grandiose. Yeah. So the covert is like a cloaked version of that.
Yeah, that's a good description. It's a great description. And it leads me actually right into my next question is victims of covert narcissistic abuse often feel like there's something wrong with them. They feel like that maybe they're stupid for ending up with this kind of relationship, or for not seeing the abuse sooner, or that they're broken, that they're the faulty ones because, I'm the one that didn't see this or didn't realize it. So they feel like something is wrong with them. Are there common traits? You kind of introduced yourself a little bit in this way. Are there common traits for these victims of covert narcissistic abuse?
Yeah, definitely. They tend to be very trusting people, very kind and giving. I find a lot of targets just have this innate desire to help the world and help others. So we will drop everything to help a friend, in need. And we're all about relationships, and we're easy to work with. We tend to be very easy flowing. We're not into drama or conflict or, we tend to be gentle, kind, nurturing people. And that's what ends up working with and mixed with people who haven't learned that they're worth boundaries, that they're, worthy of boundaries. And haven't learned healthy boundaries in their life, and also don't really have a clear picture of healthy love. So you mix that all together, and then you get with someone who wants to be the center of attention at all times. And so they will use your beautiful traits of giving and loving and nurturing, and they will play on your emotions and your heart to get you to always put them first.
Right.
So
these are good traits, you would say, that are there for that.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't include traits like being broken or messed up.
No, not at all. And the other thing is, we are usually self-actualizing people. Like, we look at ourselves. If someone said, we take self-responsibility. So that's where they can also manipulate that. Because if they're saying stuff about us, then we'll take it as like, oh, well, I'm always trying to improve myself. So let me look at this. Maybe they're right. Maybe they see something that I don't see, instead of like someone who doesn't take personal responsibility, and they can look at a person like that and go, the way you're treating me is terrible.
Yeah. So it's like the good traits that are in that beautiful person get used against them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is there hope for a victim of covert narcissistic abuse?
Always. I think in many ways, and I call it this, it's our hero's journey. It is a hero's journey. It's incredibly difficult. But I think, looking back, just speaking for myself, my recovery and my healing process since discovering this has completely changed me. It's something I could cry about very easily. I'm a very different person now than I was. Gosh, for me, it's like 8 years ago. Very different. And I think it leads us, there's different stages we go through when we first is just discovering we've been through this. And then it's just, ravaging, like, I can't think of the word, but just inhaling as much information as we can, and learning
we become like mad people trying to research everything we
can.
can.
Oh yeah, totally. And then after that, it's like you reach a place where you're like, okay, why was I okay with this for so long? Not in a putting myself down way at all, but in a purely compassionate, what was it? What is it in me that believes that, that something must have happened along the way in my experience here as a human, to make me think that I was deserving of this behavior. And so that, then if you choose to go down, there's layers of healing. And I think that's a really transformative layer that once we enter that leads us down an incredible path of self-discovery. And it's a very courageous path because it's going to bring up a lot of old wounds and realizations, and it needs to be, treated with kindness and slowness, compassion and gentleness and everything like that, because what we've gone through is a tremendous amount of trauma, ongoing trauma, which then creates complex PTSD and all kinds of things. But yeah, so I think, do people have hope? Absolutely. And I think even more than hope, we have a chance, depending on the path that we choose, to radically transform who we are and how we live in this world.
I think that's a great way to put it and a beautiful way to put it. Victims, can they learn to trust again?
Yeah. I mean, I think we develop a superpower in a way, because I think trusting again, it's like becoming wise as to who we can trust and who we can't. Instead of just, I used to be someone who just opened up to anyone. I was just, and I wore my heart in my sleeve, and I still do, but with people I trust. Yeah. I've learned to be, I don't have to give it all away to everyone.
It's those healthy boundaries. Those healthy boundaries to take.
So I think it's learning the traits, it's learning the red flags, and it's also learning to trust your own body and your own signals that are always telling us the truth, So I think it's not so much that we learn how to trust, but we learn our own guidance, and we learn wisdom around who to trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your books that you've had so far, this is a book series, if I understand correctly. Mm-hmm. And the books that you have so far, the first one, the Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, is a lot about awareness and understanding, kind of identifying what's going on, that psychology degree, that people are after. And then the second book you've written is called Worthy of Love, Reclaiming the Truth of Who You Are. Fantastic book. It's focused on recovery and healing. One of the parts I love about it is you talk about cocooning. Can you tell us a little bit about cocooning?
Yeah, definitely. I'm in a cocooning phase right now. I find I keep returning to it.
I love the description. I love the concept.
Oh, cool. Yeah, me too. Talk about self-care and self-love. So when I'll use myself an example, but there's different stages that we go through in healing. And one of them I call the cocooning phase. And that for me happened after I spent years studying this stuff and understanding and reflecting back and having all those flashbacks that we do and seeing it differently and working a lot on that. And then I got to a place where I had to cocoon from the world, kind of going no contact with the world.
I like that.
Yeah, because it all becomes too much. you know, it's for the body. It's like we reach a place where we kind of hit a wall where we just don't have it in us to relate to people, to go out into the world, to we make our world. The cocooning phase is a really special time of being with yourself and kind of guarding yourself, putting up boundaries as far as who you spend your time with, who you talk to. So I made my world really small, you know, for about a year. And I just spent time with my kids, and I would talk to my best friends on the phone who don't live by me. And I would go to the grocery store and I would drop them off at school. I spent a lot of time at home, you know, like my work is at home, so that worked out well. But for those of you, you know, who work outside the home, of just keeping who you interact with really simple. And when you get home, just, you know, taking baths, taking naps on the weekends, watching your favorite movie that makes you smile, lighting candles and incense and whatever helps you, you know, feel calm. So that was, I actually wrote my first book. A lot of people don't know this, during my cocooning phase. And it ended up, I didn't know what the book was about. I just started writing what I felt like writing. And by the end, I thought, oh, this is about becoming a safe place inside myself. So the book's called The Safest Place Possible. It's a very gentle, like self-love book, basically.
Sweet. Yeah. A lot of, and so this cocooning, it's a phase. It's not a permanent place of residence.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's definitely a phase. And I would feel such strong emotions, and I just learned to be with myself in my sadness and be with myself in my anger and just let it all come up, you know? Yeah.
And not a phase to be afraid of. I think people sometimes get afraid of it thinking, oh, I've become reclusive, or I've become angry, or but it's a healing phase.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times we can think something's wrong with us, but really it just makes sense. It's just natural. It's listening to your body, really. And then you get to a point where you just naturally all of a sudden feel like, you know what? I feel like calling this person up and meeting them at a coffee shop. I feel like I also spent a lot of time in nature too. That was so restorative for me.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's a very important part.
So the other elements of you come back when it's time.
Yeah. Your body will let you know, okay, I'm ready. One thing at a time. Yeah.
Which is a good way also to learn to trust yourself again. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
So the third book in the series, so what is that one focused on?
Yeah, and I think it will be the third and final. We'll see. This one, I'll explain without explaining, because it's my process. I kind of have to like keep it incubated inside me. But it's an aspect of healing after these type of relationships that I think is ultimately the most important. And I would say this book has made me cry like no other book that I've written. And I started writing it, and then I found that it's like, oh, this is a different animal. And this is asking me to completely separate from the world. So that's why I'm in this cocooning phase. I actually I let people know I'm going into solitude for 2 months, because I feel like this is such a sacred topic that I really need to get quiet and listen. I find when I write, it feels like a community effort with whoever's helping me, you know? So yeah, this one, I feel like I need to get rid of all distractions and just be with the book. So I'm hoping to have this one done by the end of this year. So we'll see. That's what
I'm honored that you would take the time to speak to me and to, my audience and the world out there during this time of cocooning. And so I'm very honored that you would open up, that part of you to us. So thank you for that. Very much so look forward to that book. And my audience members, I'll tell you guys right now, as soon as that book is released, you will know about it. It will be out there and available to you guys in any way that I can continue to spread the word, Debbie, for the mission that you and I are both on. So
Thank you so much, Renee.
you're so welcome. So as we wrap this up, how can people learn more about the work you are doing or that you have out there and available? How can they learn more?
Yeah, the best place to find everything out is my website, which is debbiemirza.com, just my name.com. And I should say I'm not coaching right now, but I have created a few different online courses that help people with different aspects of healing from this and understanding it. And then, something recently I didn't tell you is in my, in the Worthy of Love book, I have that chapter on rewriting false messages.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that information and I created a guided meditation to help people rewire their brain and clear out those negative messages and putting in the positive, true messages.
Awesome.
So I have guided meditations on there too. And I have a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot to kind of explore, but that's the best way.
Awesome. And there will be a link in the show notes to this podcast. There will be a link to that website, for all of you to go ahead and take a look at it. I strongly encourage it. I have gone through some of your guided meditations myself, and they are absolutely amazing and such a beautiful work.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today. And my members out there, thank you so much for listening today. It's just a pleasure to have everybody here. I wish you all so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.